They danced together, ceaselessly, for hours or days, and in wild delirium, the dancers collapsed and fell to the ground exhausted, groaning and sighing as if in the agonies of death. When recuperated, they resumed their convulsive movements.
There's been a rise in symptoms of Tourette syndrome, mostly among teen girls, and the social media app TikTok might be to blame.
We were receiving up to 17 referrals a week for young people who had suddenly developed tic-like behaviors.
There's been an influx, a huge influx over the past year.
Hi, as most of us know. Fuck off, I have Tourette's.
When I started watching some of the videos, I'm like, I have like 5 kids who are doing this exact tic.
Sit close.
Fuck.
It used to be called mass hysteria, and there are famous cases of it in centuries past.
First known as mass hysteria, it can manifest itself as a contagious group behavior. There are famous cases throughout history. The dancing plague occurred in Strasbourg, France in 1518. A woman began dancing in the streets. Days later, hundreds joined her. Many died of heart attacks, strokes, or exhaustion. The Tanganyika laughter epidemic happened in a small African village in 1962. Children in one school began laughing, and it spread throughout the area. The soap opera hysteria began in Portugal in May of 2006, when hundreds of students reported symptoms like the ones the characters in the country's most popular show were experiencing. The best-known possible case, the accusers in the 1692 Salem witch trials. Girls in colonial Massachusetts accused adults of witchcraft.
Now to the rise in teens on TikTok who are self-diagnosing themselves with rare mental health disorders that they probably don't have after watching videos on the social platform.
Those videos have been viewed hundreds of millions of times on TikTok.
Hi, I have DID and today is our birthday. So I went to Goodwill and I got a bunch of stuff for everybody and I'm going to show you guys.
I have like 30 people living in my brain and everything I do belongs to us as a group.
No idea how many dormant alters we actually have. I'd have to ask like a gatekeeper or something.
As TikTok users post more and more of these claims to various disorders, there are some concerns for clinical psychologists. We're joined right now by Dr. John Duffy. How worried are you about this latest trend?
I have to tell you, Adrian, I am quite worried about it. You have to keep in mind that kids are super suggestible.
Their body, their choice, as long as they're not hurting anybody else. Cutting off your fingers for aesthetic. Today I'm going to talk to you about something that nobody talks about and is not in the symptoms in the DSM for bipolar disorder. Now raise a hand if you started to lose feelings for someone you're romantically interested while in a manic episode.
Self-diagnosis does increase the danger of both symptom amplification and minimization. What can happen is what we sometimes refer to as a horoscope effect. It's when you read symptoms online and you feel really connected to it, so much so that you believe that you must now have that particular diagnosis.
With my girl Drew, Cameron D and Destiny, Charlie's Angels, come on.
Whenever you have anything come out, and even if it affects just a potentially small portion of the population, just hearing about it over and over and over again can make it seem like it's much more real and much more true.
Kids now will tell me that they will sit and watch videos about dissociative identity disorder or bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder for hours on end. And when you do that, you're really indoctrinating yourself.
I'm cisgender, the majority of my headmates aren't. and we've decided to transition. Which means that as happy as I am for the men in my system, I am about to have to watch myself go through the wrong puberty.
Okay, I believe you. I'm currently eating sushi.
I wonder what this link could possibly lead me to.
Who painted the Mona Lisa?
Nothing bad ever happens to the case.
Very young. What? No. Da Vinci?
When Narcissus saw his reflection in the water, he became entranced by the image of himself. Unable to obtain the object of his desire, he died right there on the banks of the lake from sorrow.
I'm throwing a gender reveal party, and no, I'm not pregnant, it's for myself. I'm non-binary.
Aseflux is when a person's sexuality fluctuates between asexual and allosexual.
I describe myself as agender.
Asexual, demisexual, and cupiosexual.
Autosexual.
Aseflux.
Neuroqueer.
Gray sexuality. Non-asexual aromantic and allosexual aromantic.
Oh, actually, I'm gender fluid. Oh, okay.
Meaning their gender sort of fluidly changes between masculine and feminine and agender or
as an aspec micro.
Drexera is a gender identity that's similar to being a girl, but it's on a completely different plane from the binary gender of woman.
Gender flan means that I live on the gender fluid spectrum, but I never identify as female.
I'm just not a man and just not a woman, but my gender is hard to define beyond that. It's just definitely queer.
I think that I would like validation for my gender identity.
Gender is a social construct. This is scientifically proven. Therefore, anything can be a gender because we made that fucking bullshit up.
My favorite label right now is genderqueer, and I'm also definitely questioning, but other words I'm experimenting with are non-binary, gender expansive, gender fluid, and demi-girl.
I am a gender fluid, trans, femme, pan-romantic, great ace, white passing Japanese person.
I'm non-binary, and I feel like perfectly encapsulates the balance of my masculine and feminine characteristics.
Neurodivergent trans people don't owe you an explanation for their existence.
I am a white transmasculine femme non-binary, temporarily mostly able-bodied, neurodivergent, obsessive compulsive, chronically ill, culturally Jewish, Unitarian Universalist, non-monogamous, demi-low romantic, gray demi-bisexual, survivor of acute and complex trauma, millennial, and cat parent in mental health.
At the core of pathological narcissism is being unable to rely on the self and on others to maintain positive yet realistic self-esteem and self-views.
I'm dropping the he, and my new pronouns are they, them, theirs.
Hi, my name's Jasper. I use they pronouns.
Hi, my name is Liana. I use they demon pronouns.
Do you see this person next to me? E is my friend.
Her name is Venus.
I heard Z runs a shop by Zercel.
Her name is Ren. Z is gender fluid.
Me went to the market with near friends who love
and them. V also goes by they, them pronouns.
Love that for Zen.
It didn't have to dress itself up for my party, but it looks great, so I'm not mad.
I just want to let Glint know that Thon is valid, that ver pronouns are valid.
It should be really proud of itself for trying on these new pronouns. I know I'm proud of it.
I love Demon very much, and I hope Demon loves Demon's self too.
That forgot that's M&M's.
It belongs to Frog, it's Frog's self. Gender fluid means my gender changes depending on the day or week, or even depending on the hour.
I use she, they pronouns. I want you to use both of them interchangeably. So like in a sentence, you would say, she's so sweet and I like their hair. So you're using both pronouns to talk about that person.
When people ask me what my pronouns are, and I'm like, yeah, they or she is fine, it's true. But when someone uses they for me, I feel like flooded with warmth. And when someone uses she for me, I'm like, I exist, I've been perceived. So it's fine, especially if you're queer, But if you a straight person, I'm not a she to you.
I don't abide by gender. I'm fucking built different.
Sometimes I'm like, I'm not actually non-binary. I'm making it up for attention.
How do I know what pronouns to use for you and other gender fluid people? We all express them differently, but personally I express them through color-coded bracelets. Pink means she, her, yellow means they, them, and blue means he, him.
This does not feel like making it up for attention.
Now you're non-binary when you said last year you're transgendered. Well, yeah, at first I thought that was my only option. I didn't feel like the gender I was born with was my only gender, and non-binary people do fall under the transgender umbrella.
Social contagion results from the heightened suggestibility of members and likened in process to the spread of contagious diseases. However confounding, it is sustained by relatively mundane interpersonal processes such as imitation, conformity, and mimicry.
Being trans is somewhat of a subjective experience. So I think that young people can, by focusing and spending time ruminating over and watching videos and reading materials about gender identity, can start to feel more and more and more as though that particular diagnosis of gender dysphoria really fits their experience.
So you've been thinking about your gender a lot recently. You've been Googling information about surgeries and hormones and what it means to be transgender and what it means to be non-binary, and trying to figure out what words fit for you and what steps you want to take to transition from there.
And as you've heard story after story by now, kids go online and they might find forums or groups or peers, whether in person or online.
I only realized this a couple of days ago, and I've only come out to a few people. I'm a guy.
That are attempting to help them understand why they are distressed. And a lot of times they stumble upon the possibility of being trans.
You are thinking about it so much and you are so intensely distressed by it all. Like you are probably trans or non-binary in some way.
If you were to look up, online, how do you know if you're trans? The kind of material that you see online just validates everybody. I mean, the answer is almost always yes.
Just remember that the way you express yourself doesn't make you any less or any more trans. If you think you might be a trans guy, then you can still carry on doing what you did before. Wear what you want, do what you want. If you want to wear dresses, then go for it. If you want to wear makeup, go for it. Doing those things doesn't make you any less trans, and it doesn't make you any less of a guy.
This belief that you have to have dysphoria in order to identify as non-binary or trans or a gender that's not cis, that's not true at all.
At no point in the definition of transgender is dysphoria a must in order to be transgender.
I think that there's a word for if you believe this, and I think that that word is called like true scum or something like that.
I have talked about this before regarding other types of mental health epidemics, let's say, where a concept is introduced into a population or introduced into a culture, and the more it is covered in media and talked about amongst young people, the more that concept feels like it fits for people who had been distressed for a variety of other reasons.
It took me until I was 27 to work out that I was a man, because I didn't know any trans people. I didn't know trans men existed.
Wandering Sun made me realize I'm trans. And then I made a number of people realize that they are trans, and then some of them have made some other people realize that they are trans. It's a whole little beautiful queer circle of life.
The wave of transgenders is coming for you.
desire to be thin, it is hard to escape, especially in a social media-driven world.
All over social media, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, a troubling trend at the fingertips of millions of tech-savvy teens, many of them vulnerable about body image.
They even offer up pro-ana influencers who offer themselves as coaches. The groups are disguised as healthy eating communities where young women encourage each other to fast, purge, and lose weight. They do this by using thinspo of stick-thin images and meanspo where they bully each other by telling them they are fat. These are the people who embrace eating disorders as a lifestyle and will post from their hospital beds their feeding tubes a trophy.
There he is.
All
There's
done.
Sam.
The boobies are done chopped off. Bippity bye bye.
My legs ran frantic like birds from a nest, and I ran until drained, leaving no choice but rest. So I fell asleep softly at the edge of a cave, but I should have gone deeper, but I'm not so brave. And like that I was torn out and thrown in the sky, and I said all my prayers deep, 'cause surely I'd die. And so I was smashed into earth, into dirt. How my skin did explode.
It looks so good. I'm really happy.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to look at it because this makes me so emotional. It's so exciting.
Mass psychosis is an epidemic of madness, and it occurs when a large portion of a society loses touch with reality and descends into delusions. Specialists say that it is a type of psychogenic illness, an epidemic of the mind rather than in the body. Physiological symptoms, however, are often not illusory, but very much real.
At least 33 states across the country have been in the middle of debating transgender issues in state legislature. Seth, can you tell us about gender-affirming care and what's at stake for these kids if the law goes into effect?
Suzanne, a lot is at stake. They say that this is a matter in some cases of life and death, being able to take this, being able to live in the role, the gender role that they feel is their own.
There have been a plethora of bills introduced in state legislatures all over the country targeting children, targeting transgender children.
It is therefore unfortunate and dangerous that this bill has politicized medical care.
I think that every single lawmaker who voted for it, the governor, if he signs it, will have blood on their hands.
And that any decisions about the health care of trans youth should be made between that transgender young person, their parent, and their doctor. The government has no place in these decisions.
Hi, it's Minjun with the Crane Center for Transgender Surgery, and this is a very interesting field in surgery in that it hasn't been done so well. In other words, there's a lot of improvement to be made.
Hi, Dr. Tony here. Today we're going to talk about a partial TITUS deletion.
Answering some of your questions about this very popular procedure.
What is the perfect age to have top surgery? My youngest patient was 15. My 14-year-old identified very, very young.
Here is a list of terms that I've heard used by other trans masks to refer to the procedure. Remove the boob. Divest the chest. Eat that teat. Get rid of that titty. Arrest the breast. Control-Alt-T-Teat.
Transitioning is an incredibly personal journey, and what may be affirming to one patient is not necessarily affirming to another.
I have many non-binary patients. They're not fully masculine, and they don't want a full mastectomy, and I can assure you there's a plethora of different operations that can help you achieve the goals that you want. And the question is, do I have to have nipples after chest reconstruction? I have several patients that have elected not to have nipples, and they have a multitude of reasons. But whatever the reason, doesn't really matter. It's your body.
Or if they want nipples in the shape of a Christmas tree or the Star of David, we're happy to accommodate their needs. Whatever you want, we can do. Squares, diamonds, stars, rainbows, horseshoes, frosted Lucky Charms.
I know what you've been looking for, and you are really in luck, because we just got one of those little darlings left, and a really unique color.
There's basically every option you could dream of. These surgeries are highly customizable. You can get or lose any body part that you need. Some people just get a new penis and nothing else. Some people might get the whole package, but keep their vaginas. I left my T-dick unburied just because I wanted to, and now I've got 2 dicks.
Bottom growth hurts. Like a lot.
You do get like a completely different configuration, and you can pick and choose what parts you want to keep or change.
In a vaginectomy, they go through the vagina in order to make incisions along the wall of the vagina and remove it entirely. I personally like to refer to it as jack-o'-lanterning, but I think that might be a little gruesome for others.
Nullo is not a medical term, it's a term created by the community that's short for nullification. And it's typically someone that was born male that doesn't identify with their penis, testicle, scrotum, and so they want that removed. Ethically, I think it's perfectly reasonable.
Look, I'm not making any money out of this deal.
If you view your phalloplasty as a Ferrari, we just built you from scratch. A fistula or a stricture repair, it's another surgery, it's another 2 weeks with a suprapubic tube, but it's like changing a tire out on your Ferrari. It doesn't mean you've totaled the Ferrari.
That ain't our real price, and that ain't either. That's our regular price. Our real price looks something like this, except when we're feeling really good and that.
As you can see, my nipples have been removed from my body. Where they are, I don't know. I am experiencing phantom nipple, or somebody has my nipples and they're pinching them and they won't let go. So if you have my nipples, just let go. It's enough. You can let go. Haha, very funny. I feel this endless nipple pinching. that isn't there, and I don't know how to feel about it, what to do about it. I don't know if this is some sick game that somebody's playing who somehow got a hold of my nipples.
I will perform transorbital lobotomy on 10 patients within an hour.
In the 1930s, a new brain surgery, like the one portrayed here in the movie Francis, was brought to the United States, the lobotomy.
Only a little more dangerous than operating to remove an infected tooth.
It was performed on mentally ill patients all over the country,
Lobotomy gets them home.
hailed by the media as a miracle cure.
Life magazine, the New York Times, Time magazine, they loved it.
Lobotomy was felt to be mainstream science. It wins the Nobel Prize.
But more than 40,000 surgeries later, the brutal truth about lobotomy would come to light.
They were basically going in and mushing around brain tissue, and unfortunately, in many cases, leaving patients worse off.
Psychosis can be defined as a detachment from reality. In place of thoughts and beliefs that conform to the facts of the world, the psychotic becomes overrun by delusions, which are false beliefs considered to be true despite the existence of evidence that proves the contrary. A person is most susceptible to a psychotic break in adolescence or early adult life, an important time for the development of identity.
When and if I get phalloplasty in the future, I expect a pee-pee party. Meaning, I want pee-pee balloons. Balloons that look like big pee-pees. I want a cake. I want a pee-pee cake. I want a cake with a big pee-pee on it. And when I rub it, white icing comes out of the top of it. I want a pee-pee cake. Okay. And I want to be on a throne, naked. And I want people to look at my brand new pee-pee and admire how beautiful my new pee-pee looks. That's what I want.
Not a stupid question at all. It really does seem like it should be easier to transplant genitalia than create them from scratch, but that's where we're at right now with the technology.
I could be hurtful, I could be purple, I could be anything you like. I could be brown, I could be blue, I could be violet sky. I could be hurtful, I could be purple, I could be anything you like. I could be brown, I could be blue, I could be violet sky. I could be hurtful, I could be purple, I could be anything you like. I could be brown, I could be blue, I could be violet sky. I could be hurtful, I could be purple, I could be anything you like.
My name's Scott Nugent. I'm 47 years old. 5 years ago, I began an ongoing medical process to live my life as a transgender man. So far, my insurance and myself have been billed just under $1 million to transition medically. And, like other transgender people, I will continue to be dependent upon drugs and doctors for the rest of my life.
So, I'm having 5 stages of what's called phalloplasty. Recovery's been a little rough.
I am 3 days post-op from my 5th phalloplasty-related surgery.
A little over 2 years ago, I underwent a surgery called phalloplasty. That created a massive pulmonary embolism that induced a stress heart attack, and I was life-flighted via helicopter to Dallas Presbyterian, giving me less than a 2% chance of living.
I'm a trans man who had phalloplasty, and I had life-threatening complications. I was in an ambulance and would spend the next 12 hours in the emergency room unable to breathe on my own. My blood oxygen was at 86% and dropping. I was in acute respiratory failure by the time an ICU room opened up for me.
Stage 1 for me consisted of vaginectomy, scrotoplasty, urethral lengthening, clitoris release. I had 2 catheters.
I spent the next 3 weeks in the ICU for 10 plus blood clots in both my legs, my pelvic area, and both of my lungs. A clot developed in my left leg artery so fast and for so long that they were worried I would have to have it amputated for lack of blood flow.
pulmonary embolism in my lungs was the most serious, and if I waited any longer, I probably would have died in my sleep.
I had another surgery to fix my arm. I had arm reconstruction surgery to fix a protruding ligament that was sticking out of my arm. But it was too late, and my arm is now handicapped for life.
So essentially I had what was called a urethral diverticulum, which was a pouch that had opened up where my original anatomy was.
I have a urethra fistula, which means that there is an opening in the urethra that is causing it to come out in another location in which it should not.
Now, 1 year post-op, I'm still peeing out of several different orifices.
So basically, when they did some testing after I had surgery, they realized I had a fistula between my urethra and my rectum. I had this colostomy done to fix the fistula, and they gave me this colostomy bag, aka I'm currently pooping into a bag.
Although you can find a transgender surgeon on every corner to conduct surgery, none will want to fix your problems.
I just feel like these surgeons don't give a fuck. This colostomy is like ruining my life. Like, I don't want shit in the bag. I don't want to fart in the bag.
I also learned that the surgeon that I went to, Dr. Curtis Crane, had 9 medical malpractice cases against him in California.
I can't think of a patient that regretted their transition in my practice. I've probably seen 2,000 patients in 8 years, and I can't think of a patient that's regretted surgery.
I do regret transitioning. I'm not gonna detransition or anything like that, but it made my life so hard, so many awkward things happening. I just pretty much wish that I just never found out that it was an option, you know?
Like I said, I don't know what I was expecting, but it sure as hell wasn't this. I don't think people talk enough about how absolutely terrifying this surgery is. And I wish I hadn't done this. I just kept going, I want to go home. I want to go home. This was a mistake. I don't want to be here. And I wish I hadn't done this.
It's just not worth it. I thought that I would have this surgery and I would be so happy, that I would love my body, and that, not for nothing, that dating would be easier because I wouldn't have to out myself in regards to why I don't have the right genitalia. But then I realized no matter how many surgeries I get, I'm gonna always have to out myself because I can't produce kids. My genitalia don't work the way a cisgender man's genitalia would work.
Yeah, it was scary to think that I regretted what I had done. Because I put so much money and time and effort into this, and knowing it's irreversible and permanent, and there's no going back.
I was on hormones, I was on testosterone for 4 years, which is why I have a deep voice. And I also had top surgery, which is basically a double mastectomy. It wasn't until I sort of did the last step in my transition, which was changing my name legally in around 2019. And once that was done, I, still felt incomplete.
Phalloplasty for me has been a very traumatic experience. It's made me very suicidal. It's made me very depressed. It's made me feel very incomplete.
My body image issues actually got worse.
Everyone is very scared to speak up because we're afraid of not being seen as being affirming or being supportive of these young people.
Psychotherapists are now bound, as far as I've been able to determine by examining the law, to adopt precisely this gender-affirming position.
Yes, a sword of Damocles hangs over professionals' heads now. They are told that they could lose their license if they don't immediately affirm the adolescent, no matter what her other mental health problems are, and immediately go along with facilitating her transition. That's not how medicine or any other area of therapy is practiced.
How many of you feel that you were blindly affirmed?
I didn't get enough pushback on transitioning. I went for 2 appointments, and after the second one, I had my letter to go get on cross-sex hormones.
2 visits? That's it? All 4 tell us they learned about transitioning on the internet, where there are transformation videos on YouTube, trans influencers, and forums.
I started out as an ally, and then eventually, over just the course of a few weeks to a few months, maybe 2 months at most, I was already starting to identify as transgender. So very rapid, very socially influenced.
A lot of people knew me online as a trans influencer. That was kind of a big part of my identity.
There seems to be a sudden rise in these teenage girls who are subject to peer influence and social media influence, deciding they're transgender, and there are no medical safeguards for these girls. There's no means right now, and no one determining whether they actually have the correct diagnosis before proceeding to treatment.
I had a few friends in high school. My best friend identified as trans. My other best friend identified as trans. One of my other very close friends identified as trans, and they've all since detransitioned or desisted.
She says she was approved for a mastectomy, what's called top surgery, that she told us was traumatic.
I started to have a really disturbing sense that a part of my body was missing, almost a ghost limb feeling about being there's something that should be there. And the feeling really surprised me, but it was really hard to deny.
And so she detransitioned by going off testosterone.
I can't believe that I transitioned and detransitioned, including hormones and surgery, in the course of less than 1 year. It's completely crazy.
When I asked how you were doing, you said I'm upset just now. What was the most upsetting?
You and the other 3 gender therapists I've seen are, in my opinion, harmful charlatans, effectively.
Well, I'm very sorry that you feel this way.
And I feel like I've been hurt by you and by the other gender therapists who have allowed me to stay on this path for over 2 years. Caught up in this horrible mindset, which has robbed me of not only 2 years, but likely my fertility, has given me breasts, has worsened my health conditions. Well, it's just the truth. I mean, you've done nothing for me, except just allowed me to dance around in this delusion.
It depends on what kind of a delusion you're having. There's different delusions.
For instance, thinking you're a woman when you're a man. How do you not consider that a delusion? I think that's heartless, honestly. Because I am delusional, and you're not going to help. It's your fault. It's all 4 of you. It's this whole profession. It's this whole thing. I am delusional, and you're not helping. You think I'm Some people who are mentally ill need to know what's real.
I could be brown, I could be blue, I could be violet sky, I could be hurtful, I could be purple, I could be anything you like. I could be brown, I could be blue, I could be violet sky, I could be hurtful, I could be purple, I could be anything you like. I could be brown, I could be blue, I could be violet sky, I could be hurtful, I could be purple, I could be anything you like. I could be brown, I could be blue, I could be violet sky, I could be hurtful, I could be purple, I could be anything you like.